I don't know if he has insurance. We were on totally different planets.
We were on
at that
two different
moment.
planets.
And so I just sat in my car in the parking lot.
I'm like texting my friends. I'm thinking it's like funny that I ended up in the hospital. She's just absolutely freaking out. This is actually grade 3 brain cancer. Live long and prosper. To anyone who came into the room, you're fired. Like I was like, I have brain cancer.
And I was really scared, and his positivity really gave me hope.
So honestly, I feel like spectacular.
It's the
Treatment
best
done.
love story ever. All right, welcome back to another episode of First Rounds on Me, a space where genuine, heartfelt conversations thrive. Whether we're diving into love, friendship, modern dating, or exploring the many facets of human relationships, we invite you to join us as we embark on a journey to uncover the powerful connections that shape our lives and define who we are. Remember, a new episode drops every Monday morning, making us the perfect companion for your morning commute. Babe, who do we have on the show today?
Today, we have the honour of hosting Leslie Hughes and Elliott Howell on the show. Their story is not one just of love and resilience, but also a testament to the incredible strength that can emerge in the face of unimaginable hardship. Through our conversation, we'll dive into the many dimensions of their journey, the healthcare system, the resilience required to navigate life as a warrior, and the profound impact that their love story has had on both their lives before and after Elliott's diagnosis. Elliott and Leslie, we are so deeply grateful for your willingness to share your experiences with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, we're really excited about this one.
And we just found out your first podcast ever,
First
right?
podcast, yes.
It's good. That means it's going to be raw. It's going to be real.
Very raw.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah.
nice.
Be easy on us.
Always, darling. I think before we kind of like dive into the thick of it, I want our listeners to get to know you guys as individuals. So, how are you both from LA? Like, where are you guys from?
No, I'm from Montana, actually.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm from Colorado, but I've been here for like a little over 8 years, so I'd consider myself a local at this point.
Feel at
Yeah.
home. How long
Yeah.
have you been here?
About 6.5 years. Yeah. So I feel like local status.
Yeah, I
as
feel like
well.
once you're over 5 years, you can kind of
Yeah.
really start to patch yourself.
Yeah.
You stuck it out.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
You made it through the storm. I heard this really random fact once, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they said that the highest concentration of Australians outside in America was in Colorado.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
Interesting.
Where'd you hear that?
I don't know. I think from an Uber driver.
Sounds reliable.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
accurate.
very reliable. For sure.
So, Leslie, you're a writer.
Yeah.
Both kind of for travel and for creative marketing or content marketing.
Yeah. Yep.
And Elliott, you're a brilliant photographer. I looked at your website. There's one picture in particular that I'm definitely going to buy when we have a house. How did you kind of find yourself in your respective fields?
I'll start here because I feel like she kind of helped me like lead into the career path that I'm in, and I'm still, not to say I'm dominating it by any means. It's very much a struggle, as is any career path, but especially in the freelance world. However, when she was doing a lot of travel writing in the beginning, I brought my camera along. She had some press trips, which are basically PR trips where they just fluff you up, give you hotels, stays, flights, food, everything. Like they make it, you live like a king and a queen.
They roll out the
basically.
red carpet for sure.
Yeah, we had, and I brought my camera. I was like still in the early stages of that, and I like to attribute this story to her because she brought me along on the trip, and then I was shooting photos of the hotel, and they wanted to like repost this, and this was like the early days of Instagram where it was like a repost on Instagram. It was like I think, can I make this a job? And so I owe it to her to be like, she helped guide me into this pathway. So yeah.
What were you doing before that?
I was actually working in the production world. So I started as a PA, grinding that route, and then got to the point where I was doing like production management. But I'm not a type A person, and so that's
You've
hard
gotta be
because
in
you
those
have to be
industries.
you have to be on it. And I realized I didn't want to be a producer anymore, and so I kind of jumped the opposite way. And and then during COVID, I was able to help a friend's company out. He started a COVID testing company, and it got really, really big. And so we both started working with that company, and I was kind of like their freelance in-house photographer / videographer, and it was just kind of whatever I wanted to do, I could. We'd come in at like noon, grab lunch, and
Typical LA work hours.
yeah, grab lunch that the office provided every day, and just create some content and leave.
That's
so
awesome.
It was good during that time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Leslie?
I never intended on being a writer, honestly. I got my degree in English literature, but I was just like, this isn't what I want to do. Kind of like figured my way out for a few years, and then had this office job that I absolutely hated. Like,
What was
it
that?
sucked the life out of me. I actually worked at Arizona State University. I was like working at kind of developing programs for one of the schools on campus, and it was just like sucking the life out of me. And it was not a positive work environment. So I was like sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I'm not making enough money and I don't want the job that my boss has. So like, why am I still here? And so, much to the dismay of my family, I quit my reliable full-time job with benefits, and I was like, there's got to be something else out there. So I started writing. I built up like my writing business, and kind of just faked it until I made it. You know, it's like you say, sure, I can do that. Yes, I have experience writing this. And then you figure it out as you go. And, but it's been an incredible journey. That was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love that.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's always evolving, and it's new, which is good. I need to constantly be stimulated by new things. And so that allows for that.
Yeah, and doesn't it, like, you know, we're all doing essentially what we want to do, and I think we've all come from jobs that, you know, I think unless you experience it, you don't know what it's like to actually work in the career that you're actually passionate about. Yeah. Once you do it, man, like, I just feel so alive, and I couldn't imagine being at a desk job or, you know.
You can never go back.
Yeah, you can never go back. Yeah, and like that's the thing that's most motivating to me is like, yeah, of course there's a chance anything fails or you have to like readjust, but the motivation behind, shit, I don't want to go back to that mundane every day.
You will do everything it takes to ensure that doesn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because I would say I'm more stressed now than I've ever been, and like I'm working harder than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
like, you're deep
Yeah,
in
you
it.
spring out of bed in the morning. Like he
I
says,
love
like it's not my
that.
favorite time of day is when I wake up because then I'm like
You
starting
never know
to
what's
go.
gonna happen.
That's amazing.
Like you never know what's gonna happen that day.
Okay,
Like,
I need to learn that trick. Mornings are a little
Yeah.
bit of a struggle for us.
I'm the same. Like if I don't get a solid 9 hours of sleep, I'm not functional. It
Yes.
just doesn't work. Whereas he's like 6-7 hours. It's like eyes awake. He's like an Energizer bunny.
Well, I'm
And
a
it's
New Yorker
beautiful.
though
I
too,
mean,
so it's different.
Oh, that's
true.
right. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that helps.
that-
That
but still
helps.
can't relate. We'll never relate.
Yeah.
Happy for you, but
I'm
can't
same
do
as
it.
you. I'd have to sleep, otherwise I'm worthless.
I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't function throughout the day. And if I get like a good, if I can get 10 hours of sleep,
You're superhuman.
Woo!
Yeah.
get anything done that day.
Am I up?
You are.
All right, so the meet cute. It's my favorite part. Because you were one of the first people I've ever met in LA.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
was
Ellie
during
was asking me
COVID.
how I met you, and
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
think
through Bridget. Remember
through
Bridget from
yes.
Intro Only?
From Intro Only, yeah, which was great. Like that community during
Oh,
the
yeah.
pandemic was awesome.
Yeah.
And I met you. You were like the nicest person ever.
Oh, thank
And
you.
then obviously we stayed friends on Instagram, and then I saw like
Yeah.
the journey.
Yeah.
But how did you guys meet?
I mean, I wish our story was like
Yeah,
super meet
it's-
cutie. It's not.
Every story is good.
Kind of lackluster.
I
we
mean, we
met through friends,
yeah.
but like at the time, I'll let you tell this story, this part of the story. But we basically met at a friend's house, like, but we all went to the bars, and then she thought I was with some other girl.
Yeah, I totally
Um,
thought he had a girlfriend that night because my friend who like was our connector showed him to me on Instagram. I was like, oh, he's really cute. Like I'm excited.
Showed him to you before you met him.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
So I
wow.
saw his
Yeah.
Instagram and I scrolled
Yep.
through and I saw some pictures and I was like, damn.
I
And
like what I see.
And then I meet him at the like pregame. Then we go out to the bars together and I see him with a girl and I'm like, oh man, he's got a girlfriend. And I was like, all right. That's
Who is
not
this
it.
mystery girl?
Just a
He,
friend that was at the
he
bars.
tells me
yeah.
he doesn't know who she is.
No, I know who it was, but it
Oh,
was just a
okay.
friend at the bars. But
But yeah, and then
yeah,
I was
the
like,
long story short, she ends up sliding into my DMs.
well,
You know
okay,
what's funny?
Oh
he
yeah.
added me as
There
a
it
friend
is.
first. I'll say that. He's
I love the forwardness of women today because we've had 4 or 5 of our last people on. Women are leading a lot. I love
Yeah.
it. She led to me too.
yeah,
I love
really?
It.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Good for you.
Good stuff.
I
for
mean,
you,
it's like,
too.
why not?
Well, like, what's the harm?
Yeah,
There's-
exactly. The worst they're
there's
going to do
no-
is say no.
There's no, I mean, like, you can adhere to whatever traditional structures that
Yeah.
you want to, each to their own, all good. But I was always like, I was the type of person that was at a bar and I got up to someone and be like, hi, my name's Hannah. I think you're really attractive. Like,
That's
that would be the pickup
amazing.
line because it's also I'm
Wow.
Australian as well.
I was
we
going
really
to
have,
say,
Yeah.
like,
no
I feel,
shame.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are really, really social, and I'm very envious of that.
it's like water off a duck's back. If someone like rejects me and says no, I'm like, all right,
That's such a
on my
beautiful
way.
quality to have.
it is. Darling,
But
I
at the
think
same
it
time,
is.
then somebody will still carry conversation simply because you're Australian, most
Yeah.
likely. Yeah.
They're automatically
the
interested.
gravitas that I have just
Yeah.
by having an accent
Yeah.
is wild. Especially when I first meet people, are like, where are you from?
Yeah.
And then it's just
It's a
the-
novelty.
It's the most beautiful icebreaker ever. I was very grateful for
Yeah.
it back in my dating days. Let me
Yeah.
say that.
That is really nice.
Wait, so how did the first date happen? So you friended her, you DM'd
Yeah.
him.
And then we just like exchanged messages a few times. And then Oh, I remember. You were moving into a new apartment. And we had set up a date to go out to dinner. And he tried to actually cancel on me the day of because he was moving. And this was so unlike me. I sent him a message and I was like, such a bitch. And it was so unlike me.
You
I think a friend helped me craft it because I was like, I need to do something different than me being like timid. I was always so shy. And I was like, basically said something along the lines of like, if you cancel this dinner, then like I won't see you again.
Yes, Leslie.
Which in retrospect is like, oh my gosh, that's so cringy. But it worked. We went out to dinner and then we took it really, really slow from there on out. We were very, very slow process. Like I was fresh out of a very, very long relationship. He was like still in his like Saturdays are for the boys phase.
Yeah,
I like to say there
100%.
is an age difference between us that
And
was like.
I also came out with like a big crew of friends from Colorado,
Yeah.
so it was like
During the pandemic?
No,
no,
was
this
8
was
years ago,
before.
right, right.
yeah, but they were still out here, and like drinking was a very heavy scene at that point in our lives, and just like doing things with like the boys.
Yeah.
Really, it was
Saturdays
like,
with the boys.
Saturdays
It was
were
such that.
were absolutely for the boys.
Well, when I met her, I moved here during the pandemic, joined the
Yeah.
intro only crowd, and I feel like when a woman puts a guy on the spot and he embraces that, that's the one, because she did the same thing to me. But when I moved here, I was part of that Santa Monica, Venice
Yeah,
lifestyle, and I was like, this is so much fun. Like
Yeah.
I just want to go out and party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I resisted kind of our relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved the whole Saturdays for the boys thing. But she
Well,
put me on the spot.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you didn't resist too long.
Yes.
And it
Men
worked
rise
out.
up to the challenge when they
We
want to.
do.
Or people rise up to the challenge when they
Yes.
want.
What's the
Yeah.
age difference between you guys?
She's
Like
cradle robber.
yeah, I am a cradle robber. I'm like 4 years older than him.
Oh, that's not bad.
Oh, it's
Not too
Yeah.
terrible now.
Now it doesn't feel like it, but I think in the beginning stages it did a little bit. But like I said, we both wanted to take it slowly for different reasons, so it worked
Yeah.
out okay. Like
And
we
we've-
didn't even move in together until we'd been dating for like four years, maybe
Yeah.
Oh wow! So
yeah.
wait, how long have you been together now?
6-ish.
6-ish. That's
that
a
was-
whole nother story. In and of it.
That was my next question. So
Yeah.
how long were you guys dating before your diagnosis?
Like that would have been 4 years then, because that was
Yeah.
2 years ago. Yeah,
Oh,
so we were
wow.
pretty solid, and he had just moved in like
It was
2 or 3 months
yeah.
prior.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The timing was as good as it could have been, honestly, for everything to happen.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
living with roommates and having the diagnosis and like seizure and everything that just happened. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done had I been alone in bed. When
Well, take
I-
us back. 'Cause that's one of my questions.
well,
actually.
we'll
Take
get-
us back
yeah.
to that moment. Like
Yeah.
when did everything first happen?
Yeah.
So like she said, we had moved in together, thankfully, like a couple months earlier, into her spot in Venice. Never leave that area anymore.
Rent control.
Yeah. But I had a big bachelor party down in Mexico, and it was in Puerto Penasco. I'm probably saying that wrong, but you basically fly into Scottsdale, where my buddy lives, whose bachelor party it was. Then you take we rented a van, took that across the border, another like 4 hours, got to this like penthouse. Very,
Nice.
no offense, low rent part of Mexico. Like you don't want to like do anything. You don't want to get hurt there.
Yeah.
And thankfully nothing happened there. Ended up flying back, or getting back on a bus, flying back to LA, getting in bed like at the end of the whole bachelor party, and fell asleep. And I had a seizure within, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes of falling asleep.
So it was like literally you made it by a day. Or
I
else
made
you'd
it by
been
a
in
day,
Mexico.
but like the crazy part is the like 8 to 9 hour journey of like being in Mexico and on the bus and then at my friend's house for another couple hours before I made my flight. Like it was just, there's a lot of places it could have all just collapsed and gone downhill. But
I like to think it was just like, the universe waiting until he was in like a safe
Yeah.
spot to like have
Wow.
this thing happen, which unfortunately or fortunately was me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he fell asleep, and I'm a really light sleeper, which is also fortunate and unfortunate. And I just woke up to him having a seizure.
And obviously, but prior to this, there was never
Nothing.
any sign of anything.
He had
so
never
you were
had
just
any
like,
prior.
what
Yeah,
the fuck's going on?
I didn't even know exactly what was going on because it wasn't like a seizure that you see in the movies. I was like, I don't know what a seizure actually looks like. And then it just kept happening, and I'll never forget. I was just sitting there like, this sounds so dramatic, but it was like I was just holding him in my arms and just staring out the window and saying like, please be okay, please be okay, please be okay. And then he finally stopped seizing, and he looked at me. And I could just tell, like, there was just this lost look on his face. And I was like, Elliott, are you okay? And he just was like, kind of looked at me weird, and I was like, do you know who I am? And he just shook his head no, and I was like, oh no.
Shit.
Like, this is bad. And so I was like, do you know who you are? Do you know where you are? And he was like kind of confused, and he was trying to piece it together. And so I immediately like pick up the phone, I think, to call one of our friends.
Did you call 911 at any point?
You know what? I didn't. And this is what is like so messed up about the healthcare system in the US, which we will get to. And we had not like discussed that really. Like, I didn't know his insurance status, like things like this. And so the first thing that pops into my head is like, I don't know if he has insurance. I don't want him to have like however much an ambulance bill costs right now. Like, it's so wild that that was something that popped into my head at this moment. But I did end up calling a friend of ours who lived close by, and he was a nurse, and he was a big guy because Elliott wasn't really fully mobile at this point. And so I call our friend, and thankfully he answered, and he was just, I was like, Johnny, you got to get over here. Like, something's wrong with Elliott. And so he came over. And at that point, Elliott, like, had remembered who I was. He was remembering our friend Johnny as he came in, like, kind of putting the pieces together.
But I was still a little bit out of it.
He was still, like, we
You
walked.
remember this?
No, so the one thing, I just remember, like, fragments. Like, I don't remember any conversations or anything, but the one thing I do remember is, like, looking at my suitcase and being, like, it was unpacked and just sitting, or it was packed still sitting by the door. And I was like, why is my suitcase there? I hadn't even remembered that I was on a whole bachelor party and stuff like that. So yeah.
So we took him to the emergency room and waited there for hours and hours. They wouldn't let me go in the emergency room because I'm not, due to COVID, and because I'm not married. We're not married. So they wouldn't let me go in. And so I sat out in the waiting room for as long as they would let me. And then they kicked me out of the waiting room because they're like, it's COVID. You can't even be in the waiting room. And so I just sat in my car in the parking lot for like 12 or 14 hours, I think it was.
Yeah. And meanwhile,
Elliott's sending me text updates because there's nobody to give me updates.
I'm sending her text updates, but I also...
So now you're alert. Like,
I'm alert, and I'm aware in a sense, but they had like given me some drugs.
He was on lots. He texted me at one point and said they'd given you morphine. I was like, oh my gosh, no. I was like, I don't want you to get addicted to morphine.
Meanwhile, I'm like texting my friends. I'm like in the hospital, like they're like peace signs, like shock signs. I'm like thinking it's like funny that I ended up in the hospital like the night of coming back from the bachelor party. And so
we were on totally different planets.
We were on two different planets because she's just absolutely freaking out in the car, and I'm like just giving her little updates here and there, and like sending my friends in the group chat like updates that I thought were funny at the time, and I still think are funny. Like,
well, I'll tell you this, like,
yeah,
the whole journey watching it from afar, I mean, you know, like, we've never really communicated until I saw this, and I was like, I am so attached to this. Like, this guy, I don't know what you did to me, but you made me think about, like, life, and I kept DMing her just, like, anything I could do to help, let me know. Like, obviously I can't do much, but just, like...
That was so kind. Even, like, saying things like that means so much, and, like, having you see us that way is really beautiful.
Yeah, so I guess, like, at what point is there family to contact, or is it just, like, you're in the parking lot just dealing with this by yourself?
Losing your mind.
I had called my parents to kind of fill them in on what was going on, but mind you, at this point it's probably like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, so there's really nobody for me to talk to. Everyone's asleep. You know, like, I know my parents would talk if I needed, but it's not, they can't really do much. They're in Montana. Like, there was nobody to really console me. So I kind of just toughed out that for like that range of hours by myself. And then, our family stepped in, and they were very, very supportive. And our community was wildly supportive. Like, we just had the most insane flooding of love and support that is just beyond like what I could have even fathomed.
So you go into the hospital, you know, clearly you've had a seizure, which in of itself is quite terrifying, and there can be a plethora of different ways of which a seizure comes about, right? So how do we get to the fact that they find out that you have a brain tumor?
So long story short, she took me into UCLA emergency care, and I at that point had Kaiser, and so we had to get a physical disc. The physical disc of my MRIs would go in, physically get a CD-ROM.
Because they still use
Kaiser.
CDs in 20.
Yeah. So you left the hospital.
We left the hospital, like, this is after everything had happened.
They told him, they give him, like, an MRI, and they saw something on there, but they said that it was, like, a benign tumor.
That's what they thought
and that
originally.
It would be, like, he would just have to have surgery to have it removed, which... like, still was really terrifying at the moment to think he had to have brain surgery, but they didn't say it. They thought it wasn't cancerous. They're like, he's fine, but, like, we'll get you over to, like, your insurance so they can take the next steps of, like, getting you, like, ready for surgery.
Okay.
So over the course of, like, the next 3 weeks to a month, we get this literal disc and bring it over to Kaiser. I get a call not too long after it had been registered in their system, and they were like, we need to start prepping you for surgery. This is actually grade 3 brain cancer.
Just
And
like right off the bat, first call.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was
my
the
God.
surgeon.
It was
The
the
surgeon
surgeon.
was called and he was just like, this is bad, guys. Like, we can't wait on anything.
Yeah.
And so that was wild to go from them telling us it was like
Benign
not cancerous to being
yeah.
like, this is, you know, one of the worst stages of brain cancer you can have.
Yeah. And thankfully at that moment, like, we had people reaching out to us and like all sorts of stuff. Like, we kind of announced. I don't even remember how we fully announced
I feel like
it.
that time was such a
It was
like
such a
weird,
blur.
like
Yeah.
blur for you because you were in such a different world. But yeah, we had shared the diagnosis with people, and we knew his surgery was coming up, and so we actually started a GoFundMe page to help.
Yeah.
And that's really when people like learned about his story and it spread, and people really came to help, not only financially but also just like emotionally, like in any way that they could, which was so beautiful. But yeah, that's kind of how we shared it with the world.
Yeah.
Was that, and then he went into surgery pretty quickly, and then he was in recovery. It was just
And
like
thankfully
so
on
many
the
things were
surgery
happening.
note, we didn't have to like request a specific doctor. We had gotten so much information from people, and the neurosurgeon who was operating on me had actually done the most awake craniotomies, so I was awake for the whole surgery
What?
in all
Yeah.
of LA. So he was a very reputable surgeon at Kaiser. So we didn't have to go seeking out other doctors or anything like that. So that was good.
Yeah, you knew you had a good one off the
We
bat.
knew we had a good one
Yeah,
because
he
his
was
name came
really
up a couple
good.
times with other
Yeah.
people, and that was like a huge portion of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that it pretty much went downhill from there. Post
downhill?
Yeah, very.
Well, that was
mean,
my,
it's-
my next question was, what was the most difficult part after the diagnosis? So
I mean, I might be different. For me, I would say, I remember it wasn't even the doctor we were talking to. It was a nurse practitioner. And she was like, do you want to know what the, like, time estimation, like, what his life estimation is? And part of me was like, no. But then part of me was like, you're going to Google it anyway, Leslie. You know what I mean? At this point, I'd already gone down the Googling, like, hole, and it was really terrible. And so I was like, you got to tell me. And so we were on this call together, and she just said, you know, like 8 to 10 years. Like, even if he goes through surgery and chemotherapy and radiation and everything, like, he will have 8 to 10 years to live. And
before
I
it
think
comes back as grade 4, a grade 4 astrocyte.
before it just comes
Yeah.
back, and then you have
Grade
a
4 is
limited amount of time.
done. Yeah.
So that was really, I think, what was the hardest, because it's just hearing it from somebody, which now I've done a lot of like work on that to like not accept that as being his truth. But at the time I really did. And so that hit me so hard of just being like, so much of my life like flashed in front of my face. It's like, what do we do? Like, what do I do in 10 years? Like, do I, you know, I had so many questions come up. And so that was a really challenging time. I think it might have been harder on me than it was on you. Like,
I was definitely still like floating. Like, my body kind of went into overdrive and was just like, life is great. You're alive.
He was
You're
so
good. I like
positive.
nothing
It was
could phase
wild.
me. I was just like almost over the moon in the sense that just like, you know, like it is what it is. And actually, like right after brain surgery, for whatever reason, I just kept being like, live long and prosper to
To
anyone
all
who
the
came into the room.
nurses?
I'm
how
not
did
even
you
a
say
Star
so
Trek
positive
fan.
and optimistic?
It was just like this innate thing. It just like kicked in. It's like, you know, when you get a rush of adrenaline when you do something scary or whatever, like it just kicked into me, and like I just like completely overwhelmed me, and I kind of ran with it. And I was just like, there's no reason to look at the dark side of any of this, because, you know, people are taking me out to like get food. Like I have family members reaching out to me who I haven't talked to in years, or friends, and it was just like, it felt good in a sense to almost like receive that much attention. Not like that I was ever looking for it, but it was just like,
Isn't it sad?
life had like slowed down for me, and I wasn't worried about working or, you know, anything like that at that point. I was just
You're focused on
I was
living
just
life.
living.
Isn't
Yeah.
it sad that something this extreme has to make us think that way?
I think
Yeah,
about that all
yeah.
the time. You know, I feel like that's like, you always learn the hardest lessons when the hardest things happen to you, and it's like, why can't we just learn them without like having to go through the shit? Like,
Yeah,
why can't we?
but would we?
Yeah, I
Because,
mean,
like,
I don't think we would. Like, in truth, we could say maybe, but
Seeing it from like as a third party, maybe this happening to you was like the perfect person had to happen to because you dealt with it so well,
Yeah.
and then you spread that to you don't know how many other people, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was one of them. When I saw the story, I was like, I have to just enjoy life. Like, this guy is
Yeah.
going through this stuff. This needs to touch me, and if it doesn't touch me, then
Yeah.
I'm doing the wrong
That's
stuff
a bigger
in life.
problem.
Yeah.
I feel like it was honestly like a silver lining for me in the sense. Like I mentioned earlier that I was working, with the COVID company, and the company has started to expand. They hired on like CMOs, and that person and I just butted heads. I was already at my wit's end with like that portion of my photography journey, and it wasn't what I loved. I loved like the travel side of things, and that's where I've shifted my gears. But I basically just remember walking into the office and being like, I have brain cancer. I'm not going to be working here any longer. And that was that. And there's nothing that person could say to me, because it was just like, they can't be like, okay, you're fired. Like I was like, I have brain cancer.
Yeah, what the fuck are you gonna do?
And is that what pushed you to photography?
So that's what pushed me into a different side of it, which is the silver lining, where I wasn't super happy with where I was at.
Yeah.
And then I realized like I wanted to go full in on like kind of like travel related content, and that's like since shifted to like UGC or like cinematic style. I don't just consider myself a photographer anymore, because in a sense photography is on a standstill, we'll put it. Like it's
She's
not
big
dead,
into photography.
but it's just like to get paid strictly for photography, it's not as easy.
It is so bloody hard. It's
Yeah.
perhaps one of the hardest creative professions to be able to make a steady income from, not only because there are so many different photographers out there, but there's so many different types of photography, and it just depends on what's in demand at the moment. But like I said, I'm
Yeah.
buying one of those pictures when we have a house.
Are we
I
allowed to
appreciate
ask,
that.
or are you allowed to share what's the current word on where you're at?
Yeah. for
Yeah,
sure.
so I recently just got an MRI, and it came through all clear. So
What does that mean?
that means that there's no growth, but basically they don't use the word remission anymore with this specific type of brain cancer, because it never really goes away. It just grows microscopically, or if at all. So we just constantly monitor with like, an MRI, brain scan. Now it's every 3 months, but before it was like every month after surgery.
Yeah.
And how long has
Yeah.
it been?
It's been a little over 2 years. We
years
just
since
celebrated the
surgery.
2-year
And
anniversary.
the 10-year thing is off the table.
I mean, according to the doctors, no, but according to us,
That's like the average. That's like the median. I fall in the higher median, which I'll take a step back to kind of talk about how she helped me through this portion.
Yeah, because network especially.
Yeah.
Leslie, like tell us, please.
She really did. Like I wouldn't say I was working out. I was like semi-healthy, but I love Chick-fil-A, I was eating Domino's, the good
I
good
will say,
stuff.
from seeing the beginning of the journey
Yeah.
to you now, I did notice that you looked very different, like, more
Yeah.
healthy.
I lost a lot of weight. So she basically did a lot of research, which was good because of her like, medical writing background. She really digs deep and dives in, and that's what she felt like she could help me with. And she found that doing a keto diet was the best route to help protect the good brain cells while I was doing chemotherapy and doing radiation. So like it's hard. The long story short of it is, if you go into it, like I was monitoring my blood every morning and taking ketone esters to make sure I was in ketosis as I was going into radiation, which was like a 45-minute drive every morning for 6 weeks.
Yeah, and he
5
got
days
his
a week.
license taken away when he had a seizure, because
Yeah.
they do that. And so I was driving him to Hollywood every day to get his radiation
This is the
treatment
best
done.
love story ever.
And he even got COVID in the middle of it too one time, and they still made him go get his radiation. They just snuck us in through like a back entrance. It was like, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
mate, that's rough. Double dose.
It was
COVID
really-
and
yeah.
radiation
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah, he was on chemo, radiation, and COVID. It hit him
Yeah.
all at once. So he's been through a lot.
But yeah,
A
that's
lot.
so I owe that all to her on doing that, because I don't think I would have switched my diet as drastically. And I still kind of maintain a keto diet in a sense. I don't drink. I cut out sugars, because sugars feed cancer. So
Say that again.
sugars feed cancer.
Thank you,
So,
Dad.
yeah.
If you're listening,
Yeah.
please.
Yes.
Don't eat any sort of sugar. Like you can have a little bit of fruit here and there, but like
Don't
any
demonize
processed
fruit.
sugar.
Fruit's good.
Fruit's delicious.
Yeah, fruit's delicious, but like processed sugar is the devil. Don't do it. But yeah, and so that was pretty much why I am now in good shape, just
Great
kinda
shape.
consistently. Yeah.
Yeah, so the doctors, like, they don't feel any differently, which is like part of my frustration about the healthcare
Yeah.
system. Is they, like, in the Western healthcare system, I should specify, is that they look at everything like very black and white, and it's a very prescriptive rather than preventative approach to healthcare. So I remember talking to them, and they, when they told us, and I'd had time to process the 8 to 10 years, they said, I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that after brain surgery, having the tumor removed, after having chemotherapy and radiation, then we just like sit around for 10 years and do nothing, and then it'll come back, and then he's like dead? Like, that's what you're saying? And they're like, I guess so. And I'm like, so there's nothing we can do in that interim time to help? And they're like, no. And that's when I was like, bullshit. Like, I will not believe that. And that's kind of what like drove me to start researching. Like, I'm big on diet for everything, whether you have cancer or not. It's important what you're putting into your body. But that's really what drove me to like look deeper into the whole keto concept.
I think it's a very, very important conversation because my parents, I'm sure everyone's parents are aging, and they go to the doctor, right? And the doctor says, take this pill, take that pill.
Yes.
And they're stubborn. They're old, stubborn people.
Yeah.
And I feel like when we tell them things, I feel like every generation learns from the previous generation. So we teach them now. And especially when you live in LA, they're like, you're listening to all this TED. And I'm like, listen, it's nothing to do with LA.
Yeah.
We're just learning. And a doctor's not trying to fix you. They're trying to fix your problem. And what fixes your problem? A pill.
Yeah.
It doesn't fix you.
Yeah.
And you guys could speak way better than this, but I try and tell my parents,
like, chasing your tail.
It's like you don't want to be on pills. You want to just fix the diet because then you don't need the pills.
Well, Leslie, you said something on Instagram. It was like one, and you were talking in specifics to the enormous amount of pills that you were having to be taking within that time. But one pill leads to another thing that fights the side effect of another pill, and then it's just this downward spiral. And so the fact that you sort out, first and foremost, not laying down and just going, oh, okay, to the doctors when they give you that diagnosis of a 10-year, because at the end of the day, like that, how can you lie down and accept that? What a ridiculous thing to do. Yeah. But then to integrate your diet and like homeopathic remedies alongside of the things that you were going on, like that must have just been it made such a difference in the way that you kind of healed throughout that process, correct?
I would like to believe that is what really helped me, honestly, because that was the one thing I could really control was what's going into my body. And when I could start working out again, then it was like, lifting was a huge help. I think just stress and just I was stagnant for a while. I couldn't put my head over my heart when I bent down, so I was like bending down and just like squatting
down.
Wearing a we called it the wee shower cap.
He had to wear a shower cap that I looked like a little beret, and I would make him like say wee when he put it on to like
because I had it's hard to see right now, but I had the scar, it was cut like this, and so I had staples all the way through here, so I had to wear it sideways, so I looked very French. And so I'd be like wee like when I get into the shower. We
tried so hard to find little moments of happiness in that time, because it was really tough.
How are those moments now? Or you it seems like you guys are in control of it. You seem like very positive people. You use the word warrior, and I think they always say like don't use the word warrior unless you're an actual warrior, but this is a perfect example. You're an actual warrior. How is it being like you guys just living the life now, like treating it as normal?
We're living life. Like I like to say to people, I feel really grateful because at this point I get to forget 99% of the time that Elliott is dealing with this, which is the complete like flip of what it was 2 years ago. I feel like he has really helped with my mindset shift because I was in kind of just this really dark place that I was helping him in the ways that I could, but mentally I had really lost myself, and I was really scared, and I was just coming from such a place of fear, and seeing his positivity really gave me hope. And then I just kind of started doing my own things, like really getting into meditation, and I don't like to use the word like spiritual like journey or things like that. I feel like that's so loaded, but I did kind of find like meditation and breath work, and that has helped me so much. Just really realize that there is so much more than what we can see with our eyes.
I love that. And I was watching a video the other day, and it was an indigenous person in Australia, and there was like a battle versus like Western medicine versus Eastern medicine, and this indigenous person said, listen, Eastern medicine with Western technology is the perfect balance of the world. And when she said that, I was like, oh, it's amazing. Like the Eastern medicine is eating right and breath work and meditation, but the West has all this technology, which is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
How do we combine those two
Yeah,
things?
you do need both of them, because like with a situation like Elliott's, like I don't think he could have relied entirely on like Eastern holistic approaches. Like I
Like, you
just,
need to remove the tumor, like
yeah,
technology.
yeah. I mean, maybe he could have, but that's not something that we wanted to risk.
Right.
So yeah, the wedding of those two would be ideal, and I guess that's kind of what he's been doing, is like merging the two of those
Yeah,
and living that.
and I've stayed pretty consistent with that. Like adaptogens are now in like everything, like in
Yes.
your coffee and
Yeah.
everything. But we have a friend who went through basically like colon cancer, and she was able to fix it with a diet. And
I have colitis. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, that's tough.
it's more of like a little annoyance,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But little things, like we watched a podcast the other day, and she's like, "Once you listen to one podcast, you're an expert." And I'm like, "Well, let's see what works."
He truly does. He
Yeah.
thinks he's an expert.
But this woman, she's this French dietitian, and she was just like, if you eat the food in a certain order, that actually makes a huge difference. And I was like, oh, let me try
Yeah,
it.
food combining.
So I started to like eat either the protein or the vegetable first, and it fixed the lining, so they say, in your gut. And then I started doing that. And I was like, oh, wow, this really worked. And
Wow. Well, you
Great,
know what?
that's
Here's
good.
the thing too.
Yeah.
With like, this goes to say for Elliott, or just any of the things any of us do for like our health. Even if it's just a placebo, then that also means it's working. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like,
For
even
sure.
if you aren't going to get in there and see the science of it fixing your gut, like directly connected to the order that you're eating, if you think you are, the mind is so incredibly powerful. Like, Elliott is a perfect example of that. And even just like thinking that it's helping, it's helping.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is that, and as you just said, I'm sure like that perpetually positive attitude you had, whether it was born of adrenaline or not,
yeah,
must have just really helped the both of you get through that entire situation, like day to day, rather than like the overarching.
I would say yes, definitely me more so than her. She had her own struggles, just like emotionally, because she was carrying the weight of like the portion that we haven't really discussed was after the surgery. I had a really terrible neuro-oncologist, the one who basically monitors your brain scans and gives you the chemotherapy. And that was still at Kaiser at that point. And so she was bearing the burden of like being on the phones with doctors because their system was really poor in order to like get a hold of anyone about anything. And I'll never forget the time when we walked in to my neurologist's office for the first time. And we're discussing going over like the different types of chemo you could take. And he literally looks at me and goes, "You can look it up." And I was like, we walked out of the office and I was like, I'm getting a new doctor.
What?
And it took us months. I had to file an
petitioned
appeal
for
and
so
everything. Eventually got over to UCLA, which has been fantastic. Shout out to UCLA.
Yeah.
But
Hey, Dr. John.
yeah, this guy was just the worst. He was an egomaniac. I mean, he's getting paid the most money and probably all the doctors in, the Kaiser network. So
Didn't have the time or the decency
Didn't-
to be able to
no.
explain to you what was going on and what was best
Yeah.
for your treatment.
And it was so
100%.
sad to just, I mean, I know that he sees this on a daily basis, it's his job, but he was so detached from just that human connection of being like, wow, this is somebody's life. Like, I get it. We all get in that, like, that routine and things become normalized. But just to think that something like that could be normalized, especially with two young people, and this isn't as common for young people. And so we're
Yeah.
coming in clearly really scared, and just he was such a disconnect that he just was like, I don't
Oh,
care.
I'm so sorry you had that horrible experience, but I'm so glad that you're now in
Yeah.
the hands of,
Oh, yes.
of people
Incredible.
that do have that human element and that human connection element that's attached to it. Because, I mean, how can you, as you said, you understand sometimes doctors might have to compartmentalize to be able to get through
Yeah,
their own
yeah.
day when they're seeing horrible things like that. But also at the same time, like to treat someone who's just gone through major brain surgery, who's now having to go through chemotherapy and radiation in conjunction with each other, which, like, my stepfather has really aggressive form of jaw cancer. And he's been battling it for 2 years, and he had gnarly chemo and radiation, all that kind of stuff. And now it's come to the point where complete necrosis of the bone, so they have to go in and do a bone graft and do all these types of things. But he had the exact same experience with an oncologist, or is that who it is?
Well, it depends. Mine was
Yeah,
neuro-oncologist,
just
but
oncology.
yeah,
Which makes sense
oncology
because
is
your brain.
similar.
But he had a horrible experience with the first person who just didn't give a shit about his experiences or what he
Yeah.
was going through, and now he's luckily with somebody really lovely. But it was baffling to witness, like my mother, the same thing as you, having to go back and forth with these doctors, like transferring him from hospital to hospital to get the care that he deserves. Like,
And it made
Yeah.
me so sad too in those instances to think of people who were going through this alone, who didn't have somebody to like help them or be there for them. Like, I feel like because we spent so much time in the hospitals, and I was like in waiting rooms, I would kind of just sit and watch and notice how many people were there by themselves, and it's like honestly making me tear up. It made me so sad to think how many people like get lost because they don't have anybody to take care of them, and our system just doesn't care.
Yeah, there are tons of systems out there. I do want to note that like can help you, but you have to be proactive in reaching out, and if you're doing it alone, you're not going to probably find the right people, because there are systems in place, but they're not through like the hospitals necessarily. Yeah.
Oh my
So
God, that's just so wild. I want to talk about you being a warrior, because I think that is an incredibly powerful word, and I want to know what your kind of like relationship with your own body is like now, kind of post surgery, post chemotherapy, post radiation. Like, how are you feeling within it?
So honestly, I feel like spectacular. Yeah. So the keto diet really, like, I was like 195. I was kind of fluffy, I'd say.
That's a nice way
sense,
of saying
it. But like, I just shed a lot of weight, and I realized, you know, I'm never going to be the big guy I wanted to be. I know Arnold Schwarzenegger's here. Like, I'll just see him at the gym. But yeah, I feel really good. There's not been any, the risk they said coming out of it that my personality could shift. I might not be able to speak.
Wow.
None of that happened. So I'm, you know, still me. My personality didn't change. If anything, it changed for the better. But like the keto diet really actually like dialed me in. I used to have, I still do have ADD, but like mine, it was very bad, and I was taking Adderall and, you know, those type of drugs to like help me with that. Now I don't take anything, and I'm able to concentrate a lot more. I still end up on side quests, you know, in the middle of the day. But yeah, my body feels great. It's, you know, I'm in a pretty constant state of lean shreddedness, which is good.
Lean shredded.
But
From
the
fluffy
body looks,
to lean shreddedness.
the body looks better lean.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Probably feels a lot better lean.
So
Yeah.
I'm more in tune with my body and everything I do, and just what goes into it. But I do
wanna
miss
know-
sugary
mate.
snacks.
Well,
sure.
it's an addiction. It's like
Yeah.
they say it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's worse, you know, worse addiction than some of the hardest drugs out there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love sugar, but I'm trying real hard. I'm a big
I always
snacker.
make fun of her.
Big
I
snacker.
got a lot of like keto treats that are like sugar replacements if sugar alcohols sit well in your stomach.
You found some
lay
good
it on me.
alternatives.
Yeah.
Lay 'em on me.
Okay.
I
We'll talk
wanna-
after.
Sounds good. I want to know what one message or piece of advice you'd give to other people who are going through a similar situation as you went through.
Well, for me, like, this just kind of came innately, but like looking at all the positives that could happen, like in your life, instead of dwelling on the negatives, because it's really easy to get lost in like, you know, okay, they told me I have 8 to 10 years to live, you know, like I'm not going to be able to speak well, or all these factors that come into play. I think just trying to stay, like, being overly positive would be the most like crucial thing that I'd try to drive home with anyone. And obviously I had a different scenario, but like I think that is huge. And just like we talked about this earlier, but just really not taking life for granted. Like it shouldn't take something so crazy like brain cancer and, you know, a timeline of 10 years to make you want to go fulfill your passions. And so like my big motto has been like live life fully, like do it with passion. Like even if you are working a full-time job, like just go after your passions, because like you never know what could happen tomorrow or the next day. And so that's kind of been my motto that I've been trying to carry forward like each and every day. And try, like, sure, there are hard times, like we all go through ups and downs, but at the end of the day, that's where I settle, and I'm happy to be there.
That's
Yeah, man,
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
a really beautiful
And
thing.
Leslie, how do you deal with that? Like, before you met him or after this, did you think that way, or did he help you think that way? Because with our relationship, I was just always happy and always optimistic, and she's like, "You're too happy and too optimistic."
No, I never said you're too happy and too optimistic. I said that you had a false sense of optimism.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Which I think you might need sometimes. You got to
Yeah,
stay
no, you
almost
got-
slightly delusional.
You gotta he's
Yeah.
definitely delusional.
Well, my investor said that to me. He says, "I never seen somebody who's got this like just crazy. What was the word he used? Something like
Crazy
false confidence or
motherfucker?
something." But I was like, I don't know. Like, whatever happens, happens. Like, I don't care.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is what it is.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
I mean, it served him very, very well. And it's like, well, I want to know, like, Leslie, as a caregiver in a situation like that, as the person watching the person that you love going through an unimaginable hardship, it's, equally as hard for you and more so in different ways. What advice would you give to other caregivers out there, other people, partners who are going through something like that?
Don't forget to take care of yourself. It's really hard in a time like that to prioritize yourself because the person that you love is going through something so crazy and you feel like you don't have time. Like, I felt like there wasn't enough time in a lifetime for me to do all of the things I could do or try and research all the things that I could to help him. And it really put me in such a bad place to where I finally had to be like, you know what, Leslie, like, you need to take time for yourself. That doesn't say that you can't help him. That doesn't mean that you don't love him. Like, it's okay to, I don't like to use the word selfish, but like, it's okay to be a little bit selfish and like take care of yourself.
Fill your own cup, because how are you supposed to fill anybody else's when yours is dry?
Yeah.
And how did you do that?
That was really where I started to meditate. I would wake up and meditate every single morning. I'll say this too, I don't know, you can cut it if you want to because I don't know if you're allowed to, but I also started microdosing mushrooms, which was really helpful.
Phew.
I would do that in tandem with my meditation, and I went really, really deep into some places that actually I saw some beautiful things that really helped me feel that I could help Elliott in other ways that I had never really thought about before. And it really just calmed me. I mean, I'm somebody who suffered from anxiety my entire life. So this is like the worst thing that could have happened to somebody who's already a pretty highly anxious person. But honestly, between like the meditation and my microdosing and Elliott being such a huge supporter of me, despite what he was going through, I'm doing so much better. Like, my anxiety is not ruling my life anymore, and it's been just an immense shift that I never imagined. And again, back to the thing of like, it's unfortunate that these things have to happen for you to learn what you learn, but that's life.
Yeah.
It is life,
So this is a deep question, and I want to ask it.
Of course.
Was there ever a moment, either of you, where you were like, I don't know if I could do this, or you were like, I don't want you to be in this position with me. I want you to, like, not have to deal with my problem? Or were you guys just like, we are in this together and like that's it, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it?
In my personal opinion, I will let her speak for herself, but I feel like we were so intertwined at that point that it just was almost impossible to do something else. It was just like, I wouldn't have made it through that period of just, almost stagnation, because I couldn't do a lot. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without her, and I tell this to everyone. She helped me really get through some hard times, like physically. I think the mental aspect I was pretty okay with for the most part.
You helped me with
but
that.
I helped her on that end, and so I think there was kind of like a give and a take. It was a yin and yang situation.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel very much like in my instinct was to help and do everything I can. I have to be completely honest and say, when they gave the 8 to 10 year diagnosis, I did have a moment where I thought, because like, we're getting to that age where it's like, oh, I'm actually a little past that age of thinking about children, but like, we're getting there. And I thought to myself for a moment, I was like, do you want to potentially be a single mom in 10 years? Like, that's what popped into my head. And I thought about it. I don't even know if I ever shared this with you, actually. But I thought about it.
For everything.
Well, it just felt like such a kind of like a messed up thing to be thinking about in this time. But my mind was all over the place, and I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? Even if he did happen to pass in 10 years, I would still want that piece of him. I would still want to have some of him here with me. So it was just like that blip where I questioned, like, not do I want to leave him, like I love him, but it was just more of like, do I want to like be a mom by myself like 10 years from now? There was never any hesitancy about, do I want to leave right now? It was like, no, instinctually, like, of course, like,
Well,
he's me, I'm him, like we're together. So,
Yeah, I feel like I'm glad I asked that question, because that was just such an amazing answer
Profound
and like
answer,
insight
yeah.
into what you guys went through. And I hope you do have a kid.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to live to be 75, 80.
I know,
Absolutely,
that's what
so
I
it doesn't
say.
matter.
That's what I
but
say now, which has been such a nice like mindset shift to be like, I don't think about that anymore. Like, I used to have to convince myself to get
Yeah.
those thoughts out of my head, and now it's just like natural. Like, once in a while I'll get like a little demon thought that pokes in, and I'm like, no, we don't need that anymore, remember?
Go away.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
This hour's gone by so quickly, but I think we're going to wrap it up with a couple of like lighthearted rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Yeah, let's do
Oh,
it.
you
Put
did
them
do
on my
rapid
phone.
fire.
They're on my phone. I just didn't write them down on the cue cards. All right, so if you could swap lives with each other for one day, what's the first thing you'd do?
Ooh. I want to know what it's.
If it's what I think you're about to say, then I'm.
No, it's not appropriate.
I was about to go that direction, I think, but
I'm really curious what it's like to be in a brain that is just like on constant side quests.
What does that mean?
Like
He's
he has
just constantly-
ADHD, so it's like he's constantly like, oh, I'm over
if I
here
get up
doing
to go to the
this.
kitchen, like I'm trying to get water or something, I'll find myself like dusting something off or like cleaning it. I'm like, what is it here for? And I'm like, oh, I
How
just
did I
needed
get
water.
here?
Like, and
And
yeah.
so I think like that, and also just to like not know what anxious thoughts really feel like as well. So for me, it's like mental. That's what I want to know, is like what it's like to be in your brain, which is very funny given like your whole
Given
brain
the
cancer
circumstances,
situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
But,
How about you, Elliot?
yeah.
I was gonna go a totally different
Go wherever you
That's
want.
great.
physical route. Definitely, just like understanding what the female orgasm is actually like. I would have to
Dude,
say.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I would say I want to know what it's. I kind of the same thing with you, is like, because he has complete equilibrium of mind, does not,
Not
have
complete,
well,
but-
pretty much like very void of anxiety, whereas like I'm
Yeah.
riddled with it. So that'd be nice. But I also
Yeah.
want to know what it's like peeing standing up.
Oh.
Every day of
Oh,
my life.
that would be a bit. Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that's
that would be
fantastic. I'll
so
tell you that
weird.
much.
I
It's
would
great.
pee everywhere.
I
Yeah.
know. It's really
Why do you think we do
places.
it?
Yeah.
It is really unfortunate. Like when we're camping or we're on trips, like we were on a friend's sailboat recently, and it's just like the boys are just peeing off the back of the boat, and I'm like, God damn, like why can't I do
Yeah.
this?
They're cramped in a little toilet
Yeah.
that's like this
Yeah.
inside.
It's so rude. What's your favorite type of date night?
Ooh, I feel like I'll speak for us on this one. We like to do like little charcuterie nights, some charcuterie
Ooh,
boards.
friggin' love a
Yeah.
charcuterie.
We recently did one in the park down the street, and we have a little table we brought out. You know, hit up Trader Joe's. They have like little meat pack and all the cheeses, and we gotta like eat keto crackers and stuff. But
Yeah.
I got some good recommendations
I'm
for that.
so excited for that.
That's your perfect date.
I
Yeah.
friggin' love charcuterie. I make
It's
my own
so
little
cool.
charcuterie.
It
charcuterie
makes me
cheese.
like feel like I'm in Europe, which is like the version of me that I love the most, and so I feel like it's just like a European thing that
Transports
we
you
can-
right back there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Except the last time we went, there was this homeless woman in the park, and
Oh, wait, that's great.
I was wearing we were in cozies. It was like cold, and we were outside.
She was definitely crazy, but
Yeah,
she looks
and
at her and she goes,
I stood up.
"Square ass, SpongeBob square ass," and just keeps yelling SpongeBob
She was
square
calling me
ass at her.
SpongeBob
It was
Square
so
Ass,
funny.
And I was like, huh, I've never heard that one before.
Low key,
And
Elliot, you
then-
need to get that made on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
you really do need to make me that shirt.
Oh my god. All right, last one for the entire podcast, which is so sad because like I said, this hour's gone by way too quickly. What is one thing that your partner does that always makes you feel loved and appreciated?
This is a very little one, and I think she thinks it goes unnoticed, but every morning, practically, she wakes up before me and makes me coffee, and it is fantastic. And sometimes I'm still in bed, sometimes I'm just getting out of bed as she like brings it in, and I love that. It's just a small little thing that
He acts surprised every single morning when
Yeah.
I bring it in. He's like,
Coffee?
oh my gosh. I'm like, I do this every day, babe.
How about you, Liz?
There's a
sweet.
celebrity that does that for his wife. Who does that? Is it Pierce Brosnan?
I don't
Oh,
know,
that would
darling.
make him even more lovely.
There's
wouldn't
some big celebrity that every morning he makes his wife a cup of coffee and gives it to her. I
It's
gotta
the little
look it up.
things
I don't know who it
sometimes,
is.
You know?
yeah.
How about you, Leslie?
I would say, listen, Elliott is a very, very good listener, and he's very patient, which is really appreciated by me. I feel like my voice wasn't properly heard most of my life, and I feel like he's the first person who really like hears me and sees me, and even when I ramble on and on, he'll patiently just like sit there, and he's like, mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the mark of a good partner, though. You
Yeah,
guys really are the
he's
yin and
great.
yang to each other, and it's such a beautiful
Yeah.
thing. Well, to wrap up here, could you just let our listeners know where to find you, like your website, what you like, wherever?
And anything to help with like any foundations or
Yeah.
things about brain cancer that you want us
Or
to
the
know about.
GoFundMe.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to come back to you on the brain cancer things. There
Okay.
are a lot of them. She might be able to speak to that better. But you can find me. My Instagram is I am Elliott. That's 2 L's, 2 T's. And my TikTok actually got big as I was sharing my story on it. It's I am Elliott, HOWL. I am Elliott Howell. But yeah, she also is just re-releasing.
And your photography is on your website.
Yeah, it's on my website. Yeah.
We'll plug that.
Got that.
Plug the photography. It's great
Hell
stuff.
yeah. What about you, Leslie?
I'm on Instagram for fun. I don't know if I'm the best Instagram follow, but it's just at Leslie K. Hughes. And then I'm actually going through a site rebrand.
I saw that today.
Yeah, and Elliott, of course, helped me with the photos.
Yeah.
So I'll be launching that. That's for like my content marketing writing and my copywriting.
And that's Visceral Magazine?
No, actually, that's my like fun. I'm such a like wide range of interests. That's like my fun side, like digital magazine. I shoot for fun. I don't get paid for that.
Okay.
But my website that I'm like actually my business website is called House of Hughes.
House
So
of
that's
Hughes.
for my writing business that I will be launching the rebrand. So
Nice.
you can find me.
You
there.
and Hannah
Also.
could collaborate on that because she's the blogger and writer for First Rounds on Me.
Amazing.
Do all the copywriting and all that kind of stuff.
It's so
It's fun. I love
right?
writing. It's such a beautiful. I was a model for a very long time, and I always felt like I used my body a lot to be creative and expressive, and that was great. But like I had so many things going up in my mind that I wanted to express in that regard. Whilst typing about dating wasn't the exact route that I thought I was going to be going, it is a really beautiful prelude to perhaps something further down the road.
What are you envisioning?
I think I'm going to write a book.
Ooh, about
Oh,
what?
oh
Like,
mate, I
about
had
your
a
life?
wild fucking life.
Okay, I mean, we need to
things-
hear more about this. I feel like we're just
Yeah.
talking, I'm like, I was like through this thing. I was like, I want to ask you guys questions.
We'll
but I
go.
don't-
We'll go on
Yeah.
a double date.
Okay,
We'll
okay.
link
Like
up
a
promise
proper
with
real
yeah.
one? Okay.
But this was a nice little trial run, I think.
I think so. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
This is a good
that.
tester.
All right,
I
Dylan, you
wanna
want to do the
hear
outro?
Yeah, thank you for listening. Check out one of our past episodes. Subscribe. Check out the link to the app in the show notes. We love you. We appreciate you. Happy dating. See you next time.
Bye.